Aloha! This is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. I'm having a great time here on Maui, and Maui has been my third and final stop of my island hopping here in the Hawaiian Islands this year. I was asked by the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii to give presentations on each of the islands, Kauai, Oahu, and Maui, and I gave 3 presentations, one on each island. And actually I filmed a few of them for you, but we're just gonna go ahead and put up this one from Maui for you. Also on the vsh.org website, they're gonna actually put up my presentation that I gave on Oahu. This is very similar to the presentation I gave on Maui, but I like the one a little bit better on Maui, as did my girlfriend. I was kind of like maybe more camera shy for Oahu because I was having to hold a mic and had a clicker and all kinds of crazy stuff. But anyways, this one came out a lot better, so you guys are gonna get the same, basically the same information. And the presentation that I gave was entitled How to Eat and Grow Your Way to Better Health Today. And this is something I'm very passionate about, right? I mean, besides eating the proper and the best foods on the planet that you'll learn in the presentation I'll be giving you guys in a minute, it's also very important to me to raise the bar, to take the diet, which is granted the best diet on the planet, which is dominated in fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, as well as other plant foods, to even move it up a notch, to have higher quality of these fruits and vegetables. And even more so than that, increase the variety. As you'll learn in my talk, there's some major inherent challenges with the agriculture system of today, both in poor quality fruits and vegetables and poor quality foods in general, but also more importantly, very limiting amount of dietary choices that you guys can't focus on. In any case, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into my 1 hour and 45-minute presentation. All right, thank you everybody tonight for coming. I have a little presentation that we weren't able to hook up to the projector because we're missing a DV or HDMI cable, but we'll show it on here, and you don't really need to see the slides. And that being said, this lecture was also filmed in Honolulu the other night, and it'll be online, and then they have all my slides, so it'll be fully integrated if you feel the need. I'll try to explain things a bit better than I normally would, because I'm not going to have, all you guys probably can't see my little small screen here.
We're online at your website?
So this will be at the VSH Hawaii website. They're going to have a link to the presentation I gave in Oahu, which is basically the same one, but every one I give is a little bit different because most of my speaking style is impromptu, and I try to, the slides are just there to kind of keep me on track a little bit. All right, so tonight I wanted to share with you guys the best way to health is to eat and grow your food. And that's basically what I've learned over the last 22 years, to sum it up. How many of you guys have watched any of my videos before by a show of hands? So wow, really low percentage compared to some of the other islands. But that's good. So you could be exposed to my teachings and what I share. So to make a long story short, I got into dietary changes because of my failing health. I had just graduated college and I was stricken with spinal meningitis, which is a life-threatening illness. There's a viral version and a bacterial version. The bacterial version can be treated with antibiotics. The viral version, there is no treatment medically. So I had bad flu-like symptoms and I was hospitalized. I remember literally when my parents took me to the hospital, I was passed out. And the next thing I remember waking up with IVs stuck in me and in intensive care in the emergency room, and I didn't know what was going on. So I asked the doctor, hey, like what most people ask the doctor when you're in the hospital, hey, when am I going to get out of here, right? When am I going to go home? When is this going to be over? Because that's what we think. Like as a kid, we go to the hospital with the cold, the flu, whatever, ear infections, and the doctor would do something to us, maybe give us some drugs, we'd go home and we'd get better. Now, from my knowledge now, it wasn't the drugs that necessarily healed us. They may be crutches, but our body heals itself. But in any case, back then I asked the doctor, hey, when am I going to go home? And he told me the news that nobody wants to hear, especially a kid in his 20s. He says, you might not make it out of here alive. And I'm like, wow, this really sucks. This is not supposed to happen to me. And he was talking about age earlier, until you're about 60. And I mean, I was a kid then, so, you know. But now I know that we should at least be able to live to 150 or 200 if you live properly. And that's the main thing. And that's literally been the focus of my research. But anyways, he said that I might not make it out alive. And then I really had a lot of time to think in the hospital, just being light up. They did a spinal tap to me to, verify it was spinal meningitis. That really hurt a lot. and I was just laid up thinking a lot in the hospital, and that was probably one of the best things that happened to me, because I thought about, like, John, what's really important, man? You could be losing your life right now, and you just graduated college with a business marketing degree, go out into the world and get like a, good paying job and make all this money like we're supposed to as good Americans or good people, because money rules the world and you're successful if you have a lot of money, or so I thought. And then what I really thought was like, man, that's all BS. Like, what's really important is your health. I'm like, I'm about here to lose my health, and even if you had $1 million to write the check, Mr. Doctor, $1 million, do not cash unless John walks out of here alive, he couldn't guarantee that I was going to walk out of there. No amounts of money could. And I mean, there's millionaires, quadrillionaires, billionaires that lose their lives all the time. And it's because they're not valuing their health. So I want to encourage everybody here to maybe value your health a little bit more. And I'm going to share with you guys at least some of the things that I've learned that have helped me improve my health. And I'm just going to really much stick with diet today, but there's so many other factors that influence your health besides just the diet. How much sleep you're getting, your mental state, exercise, so many different things. And environmental factors, really huge one. And one of the biggest negative environmental factors these days, in my opinion, your cell phone. I'm going to start my stopwatch. It's a really bad news in my opinion. And I would encourage everybody to minimize their use of the cell phone if at all possible. I own a cell phone, but 99.9% of the time it's actually in the airplane mode, so I could use some of the apps, and I use it in its wireless functionality only when I have a Wi-Fi signal. Wi-Fi signals are probably still maybe not the best thing in the world, so I keep mine turned off in my home unless I need to get online, but I have my whole house wired. I can even plug my iPhone in with a cable to get the internet and other Android phones and devices, because I do believe it's really not a good thing, that all these electromagnetic fields and frequencies. But even worse than just the Wi-Fi signals is the powerful cell signals, and this talk's not necessarily about that tonight. But there's so many influences that can influence your health, and if you truly value your health, you're going to do things in line with your values. And so one of my values is I value my health more than money. So if that means, hey, I'm not going to work a job that I got to like wake up with an alarm clock and not get enough sleep every day, I'm not going to have that job because I want to have my health more than I want to have money. Unfortunately, that's maybe a really big issue with many people, because they got to have their lifestyle, their house, and all these things, and it's tough. So everybody needs to figure that out on their own. So anyways, luckily I made it out of the hospital alive, and I learned at that point health is my greatest wealth. And when I left, I asked the doctor one question: why did I get this disease in the first place? And I always encourage everybody in here to always ask a better question, because you'll get a better answer. And to ask a lot of questions, because that's the way we really learn. And unfortunately, I think in this day and age, the kid that asks lots of questions in the school is usually the kid that's made fun of. But so then we shut down and we don't ask important questions. I will take questions hopefully at the end, so write those all down if you do have any. But I asked the doctor, why did I get this situation in the first place? And he said, you have what's called complement immune deficiency. And in layman's terms, what he explained to me is that you have a defective immune system that is blamed on your bad genes. So you just had like the bad luck of the draw, and you have bad genes, so you overcame this bout of spinal meningitis this time, but next time you could get any other kind of disease and you might not make it out alive or be so lucky. It's kind of like the movie The Boy in the Bubble with John Travolta in the 1970s. I know a lot of people in here may have seen that movie. That guy had to live in the bubble, and then the normal person, and then I may be somewhere in the middle where my immune system's not as strong as a normal person to fight all these things off, but not like the guy in The Boy in the Bubble. And so leaving the hospital, I knew that I needed to do something, and all I know I needed to do at that point was I needed to improve and increase my immune system so that I have a strong immune system so that I could fight off other bacteria and viruses and all these things out in the world. And I didn't know how I was going to do that, and that just led me on the journey that I'm on today. Is basically I found out that the best diet is a plant-based diet and a raw food diet. I do a 99.9% raw food diet, but I don't necessarily recommend eating that much raw foods for everybody, but there are things that I do recommend for everybody that will be in the presentation today. And one of the concepts I think is really important for everybody in here, whether you're vegan, vegetarian, or whatever diet or whatever you're doing in life, is concept of CANI. It stands C-A-N-I. It stands for constant and never-ending improvement. And I learned a process like this actually in business management classes. We sent a guy named Deming over to Japan after we bombed Japan, and Deming was an American businessman that was sent over there to help them rebuild. And he taught a concept of Kanai, and in Japanese they call it Kaizen, of constant and never-ending improvement. And it's these concepts of never-ending improvement, caused companies like Toyota and Honda, and back in the day, Sony, to have really high-quality products. And even to this day, Honda and Toyota, have some of the most longest-lasting, most durable cars. And that's because even if they make the best car, they're like, how can we improve this car, even though it's like already the best? How can we improve our supply chain line so that the trunk is always, perfect, and we have an extra supply chain, to make trunks in case this factory goes out? Because I actually have a friend who works for Honda in Alabama, and part of his company makes the trunks for Honda. But really, they're always trying to improve. And so one of the things I got into because of Tony Robbins in the 1990s when I got into raw foods was always trying to improve what I'm doing, and I took that and applied that to my diet. John, even though you're already eating a raw food diet, which is pretty much the best diet in my opinion, how can you make a raw food diet better? So that's what I'm going to share with you guys. And a lot of the doctors, as I respect them so much, Dr. Michael Greger, the movie they're going to be showing in a couple weeks, highly encourage you guys to check that one out. They talk a lot about the plants and why they're important, but I like to think that I take all these things to the next level, because aside just from eating plants, the quality of the plants you eat make up you, and unfortunately most people are not paying attention to the quality. So I want to give myself every possible advantage to have the highest and best immune system, which consequently will also give you better health. So let's go ahead and continue here. So I have three top problems with the food that we're eating today. Number one is eating improper types and amounts of foods. Number two, declining nutrition in the foods being grown in the standard agriculture system. And number three, limited food choices. And we'll get into all these, I'll address each one of these topics coming up here. Let's touch on the eating improper types and amounts of foods first. And what are the results of these problems? Well, the results of these problems are things like higher disease rates, reduced immune system, less energy, excess weight, shorter lifespan, lower levels of health, which can all lead to, as we talked about in the intro there, one of the top 15 killers of America. And Dr. Greger is really good at going over how a plant-based diet can heal, prevent, or lessen your chance of many of the top killers. So what is the answer to the poor health of the nation today? And the answer go vegan, right? I'm sure the organizers here would want you to believe that just simply going vegan and excluding all animal products from your diet will assure you good health. And I will be the first to tell you that that will not assure you good health simply being vegan. That is not good enough, because a vegan diet specifically says what you're not eating. There's plenty of vegan foods that are totally junk foods, processed foods, not healthy for you, because it doesn't specify the foods you should be eating. So let's hear from Dr. Michael Greger on what he says about this.
There's only one diet ever been proven to reverse heart disease in the majority of patients, a plant-based diet. If that's the only thing a plant-based diet can do, reverse a number one killer, a number two killer here in the UK, shouldn't that be the default diet until proven otherwise? And the fact that it can also prevent, arrest, or reverse other leading killers, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, would seem to make the case simply overwhelming. There's only one diet ever proven to do that. It's hard to cherry pick when there's only one cherry.
Basically what he's saying is that the only diet ever proven to reverse heart disease is the plant-based diet, as well as help or reverse many of the other different killers of today. And so he has a book, How Not to Die, which I would recommend to everybody. And if you don't have the time to read, like I pretty much don't have the time to read anymore, but I do listen to audiobooks. That is on audiobooks. So I'll go out to my garden and put it on my little iPhone and listen to it with headphones, so you could get all the information. And if you want to check out Dr. Greger online, he's at nutritionfacts.org. Has many really informative videos I would encourage you guys to watch. So my research supports Dr. Greger and goes even further. So I like to always ask a better question, and my question is, okay, so a plant-based diet is good. Why does it really work? Like, what are the components of a plant-based diet that really makes it effective? And so number one, it, of course, eliminates the food that causes the problem in the first place, right? It eliminates the animal products and a lot of the junk foods. We're talking about a whole food plant-based diet. But number two, it increases the foods that brings you health and helps to reverse disease. And so I recommend for everybody in here a course of action. And the course of action is to completely eliminate or massively reduce all the animal foods and processed foods and junk foods in your diet, vegan or not. But more importantly, massively increase the most beneficial whole plant foods in your diet. And I'm sitting up here telling you guys this, and I'm not here to convince you guys of anything. You guys could do anything you want to do. I'm just sharing you guys my information that I've learned. And I think that every American, everybody that's standing in line at McDonald's should have the information to make the choice in their life what they choose to do. If they knowingly know that eating that hamburger at McDonald's will cause them in high probability to have a heart disease and have a heart attack and lose their life early, that's their right. Like, it's their right to smoke, as long as you don't do it around me. I mean, at least on cigarettes, there's cancer warnings on there, but people still choose to smoke anyways. But people don't have the information about all the other processed foods and junk foods, and they can continue to consume them, and then they're like surprised when they get sick early. But if people totally want to eat that stuff and have that, I have friends like, John, you eat rabbit food, and I'd rather just eat food, and if I got to lose my life early, they're willing to do that, and that's fine. Great. More power to you. I mean, my brother, he just eats whatever, and I wish he would eat healthier, but he knows what I teach, and I wish him well, but we'll see what happens one day. But anyways, so the whole point is, I don't care what kind of diet you guys eat. You guys could eat a vegan diet, a vegetarian diet, a lacto-ovo-vegetarian diet, a raw food, a flexitarian, a standard American diet, whatever diet you guys are eating. They can all benefit from massively increasing the amount of vegetables, leafy greens, fruits, and herbs in your diet, period. And so I want to encourage everybody to use the 80-20 rule. We've always heard of the 80-20 rule, and we could apply it to our diet. And this is my version of the 80-20 rule for diet. 80% of the diet should be whole plant foods with an emphasis on fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. And the other 20%, hopefully you're eating other healthy things, but even if you want to eat some meat sometimes as a treat, or you want to have some junk processed foods, hey, great, you could have that as a treat, but the majority of what you should be doing should be the healthy stuff. And unfortunately in America, I think most Americans don't even eat 20% of fruits and vegetables. They're eating 80% or even more of the junk. I mean, I look at people's shopping carts in the stores, and I mean, I don't want to say it makes me sad, but because it's a really sad day, but most people just are not eating healthy stuff. It's hurting the country, really. Anyways, we want to focus on whole plant foods, and this is a picture of olive oil with a circle and a line through it, because olive oil and any other kind of oil is not a whole food. It's a processed food. Olive oil is a processed food, and that's a definition of a junk food is a food that has low nutritional value, which olive oil does have. It has a lot of calories, but low nutrition value, and it's 100% fat. Dried olives, on the other hand, this is what I would eat instead of olive oil. Olives are a whole food and contain fiber, antioxidants. Also, they contain that oil, but in much lower quantities, and are much more nutritious. So I would encourage, instead of eating coconut oil, eat the coconut flesh or have some coconut milk. It's more of a whole, complete food. And while some of you guys might argue with me because, hey, but John, olive oil is healthy, because so many people have heard things about olive oil, I would kind of go down this next tip. Think about this. Most of you guys, hopefully, would agree that white sugar is a processed food and it is pretty much junk food, and we shouldn't be eating white refined sugar, right? So white refined sugar is to sugar cane, which is a whole food, as is olive oil is to whole olives. So if you kind of think of it in that terms, maybe it's a little bit more clear. And the tip at the bottom here just pops up, says sea salt is neither a whole food or a health food. And we'll let you guys ponder that one. So the best way to increase the fruits and vegetables, which are the best foods on the entire planet, is, in my opinion, to juice them. Juicing them allows you to basically concentrate and maximize the amounts of fruits and vegetables that you're going to get into you. And I mean, that's one of the techniques I use to maximize the fruits and vegetables. Now, I don't live on a juice diet, nor do I necessarily recommend living on juice diets. I drink juice maybe once a day to maximize my fruits and vegetables, and I might have like a nice fruit meal or two, and then I'll have like a big salad or something with a lot of greens at night with minimal amounts of nuts and seeds and fats. But the juicing will allow you to take like 5 pounds of carrots, organic carrots, and lately I got some really deep purple carrots that are really high pigmented, which they actually taste amazing and they're really good. And you could take 5 pounds of carrots, run it through the juicer, and instead of the volume of 5 pounds of carrots, now you have about 5 cups of the carrot juice, which will have the majority of the nutrition out of the carrots except for the insoluble fiber. That is what the juicer separates out, but the juice will have the soluble fiber. Soluble means dissolves in water, so if it dissolves in water, that's what juice is. So carrots, I looked it up, and I have a graph actually online about many of the different popular fruits and vegetables and how much soluble and insoluble fiber they are, and carrots tend to be about 48% soluble fiber. So even when you're juicing the carrots, you're getting roughly, but not quite, half of the fiber in the carrots. And that's really important. And so when you remove the insoluble fiber and you break open the cell walls, number one, it makes things easier to digest. So the juice can be, taken in by your body within 15 minutes, they say. So you're going to get a much better uptake, and especially as people get older, I find people's digestive systems get sluggish, and if you believe in things such as mucoid plaque and all these things in your intestines that may hinder absorption, juicing can be quite beneficial. I've sold juicers to thousands of people, and I get testimonials all the time of people having more energy and gaining more weight. And the easiest way I like to juice is to just simply skip what you're eating for breakfast and just simply make a juice. Make as much juice as you want for breakfast and just drink that, and then go into the regular meals of your day. But this way also, because when you're waking up and eating breakfast, like actually I don't even eat breakfast. When I wake up, I drink coconut water or water, because I want to extend the time I'm not eating in the day. And then when I get hungry after I drink my coconut water or water, which is maybe 4 hours later, then I'll eat my first meal of the day, which generally if I'm home will be juice, and if I'm traveling like I am now, then usually it's fruit. So it's something really easy to kind of get my body going for the day and not just all of a sudden hit it like unfortunately most Americans do with something really heavy and hard to digest, like I smelt in the hotel room next door, bacon and eggs. Do not recommend that. And then I do recommend also a slow juicing. So there's many juicers that run at high speed, 3,600 RPM up to 12,000 RPMs. They've been described as an airplane taking off in your kitchen. These are the inexpensive juicers you could buy at department stores. And they aerate the juice, but more importantly than aerate the juice, they also bombard the broken open cells with oxygen, which lowers the nutritional quality of the juice, and there are published studies that show this. So they did a testing where they did a slow juice, a high-speed juice, and a blended smoothie with broccoli. And they extracted all this, and then they tested for polyphenols, and the polyphenol content of the slow juice was higher. And then the functional test was they took the residues of these different processes and put it in with like 5 different strains of cancer cells. And the slow juice actually overall had the best cancer reduction rate. So that's why I recommend the slow juice. Plus the slow juice, because it's not aerated, it's oxidizing all the nutrients, it tastes a lot better for us also. So moving right along. So the next challenge, so the first challenge I want to cover, which was basically the answer is eat more fruits and vegetables and minimize all the other junk foods you guys are eating because people are making improper food choices. The second part is simply this, it's the declining nutrition in food today. And I like to call it a challenge instead of a problem, because it kind of like invokes something like I could take on this challenge, I could overcome it, instead of a problem is like something that could weigh you down. And I want to encourage everybody in here, no matter what the challenge or problem is to look at them as opportunities in disguise, right? Think of how can we make this situation better instead of focusing on the problem. And so in the declining nutrients in food, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has been spending your tax dollars at work and been compiling nutritional data on food content since the 1800s. And studies show how foods today have less nutrition than of the past. So I quote a study published in 2004 in the Journal of American College of Nutrition found, quote unquote, reliable declines in 43 different vegetables and fruits. And then the British Food Journal study found that 20 vegetables, average calcium content had declined 19%, iron 22%, and potassium 14%. And then you guys probably can't see this graph too much, but basically the graph, it starts up here, and this is 1914, and as the line goes down, it goes to 1997, and this is 2017 last I checked. But this is the average mineral content in selected vegetables from 1914 to 1997. So, I mean, if you were alive in 1914, lots more trace minerals in the foods then, and nowadays, pretty much since the 60s, they've tanked. And this, in my opinion, is due to the farming practices, mostly chemical farming practices, and even organic farming practices, not much better. And so this is just a slide of nutritional differences in kale between 1950 and 1999. As you can see, there's reliable declines in vitamin C, phosphorus, iron, calcium, riboflavin. Once again, difference in onions, less nutrition. Watermelon, the vitamin C went up, and we'll discuss in a little bit why nutritional values can be different. But a lot of things, including the riboflavin, went down 60%. So if you think, but John, I eat organic produce, so I'm safe because organic produce is the panacea. Well, I like to say organic produce is a better option in the conventional food system because based on my research, but not always, in general, it's higher in nutrients and trace minerals than the conventional counterparts. Because in conventional growing, they generally put an NPK fertilizer, which is 3 main minerals, and some farmers may put up to maybe 16 trace minerals in conventional farming. But with organic farming, you're using more natural methods that are going to, by just the methods you're using, are going to introduce more trace minerals into the soil, but they still may not add all the things into the soil that they should be doing to have the highest quality food. And so the question is, why are these trace minerals important, right? I want to encourage you guys to get all the nutrients you guys need from the food you eat and not a mineral supplement. The answer to a trace mineral deficiency is not like, I'm going to take a Centrum A to Z of zinc tablet to get my trace minerals. Hundreds and thousands of years ago, all throughout the course of history, people and animals would get all the nutrients they need from foods, but nowadays that is simply not happening due to the poor agriculture system because man thinks he could outsmart nature and just give nature feed these few nutrients and think they could have healthy plants. And the reason why it's important is because as minerals go down, diseases go up. And there are USDA websites where they've used tax dollars once again to find out what diseases are correlated with certain mineral deficiencies. And so, for example, chromium and vanadium is one that has been implicated with people with diabetes. So if you go to the health food store and you say, hey, I have diabetes, and then you recommend a supplement, most of those supplements are going to contain chromium and vanadium because those are the ones they find that people with diabetes or blood sugar issues may need. Now, we should be getting those from our food, and I'll show you guys, well, anyways, my data shows that those minerals specifically have been going down a lot. But anyways, this slide shows certain health conditions and the percentage increase over time. So for example, in 1980, asthma went up 87.44%. Now, if you guys all think about when you guys were back in high school, how many people did you know when you were in high school that had asthma? I mean, I know when I went into high school, I was like probably like one of only 3 kids in the school that had asthma. It was very uncommon. But nowadays, if you know kids and whatnot, man, it's so much higher. So many people have asthma these days. And so that may be because, I'm not going to say it is because, but it may be because of a trace mineral deficiency, among other things. And so magnesium has been implicated in asthma. So moving on. So nutrients in fruits and vegetables, and not all fruits and vegetables are created equal in nutrition. And these are some of the things that influence the nutrition in the fruits or vegetables. Number one, the growing practices. How was it grown? Was it grown in, with synthetic fertilizers where they're adding a really small spectrum of nutrients to grow that plant out? Was it grown in organic agriculture where they're adding, a much more broad spectrum of minerals? Or was it grown in your own yard where you're adding up to 70 to 90 different trace minerals like I am, right? That's a huge difference. Number two, when was the food you're eating harvested? This is important. I mean, I've met so many people in my journey, on my journey of eating raw foods and always trying to improve. I'm always seeking out new information. I've met people that worked in the wholesale, trade of selling produce, and he was a big guy up in New York City importing produce from California and then selling it. And he would talk about this story on how produce has what they call in the industry legs. And what that means in layman's terms is for a produce to have legs, that means it has a longer shelf life. So many people may not realize, but the apples you're buying now, if they're sourced from USA right now, here in the health food stores, I visited a few today, including Down to Earth, the apples you're buying now were actually harvested last year. They're last year's harvest, and they've been stored in an oxygen-deprived environment in cold storage now for 6 months, right? Those apples are not quite as vital or as healthy as they were when they were first picked off the vine. Furthermore, you can tell this by eating them. I mean, a lot of the apples you might be eating now that are from USA are like kind of softer and mealier. They don't have that nice crisp texture, that you would get. Now, they are also importing apples from South America now, which are probably fresher than the US ones because they're kind of in their season because it's reversed than us. But nonetheless, the apples have been in cold storage. And this is just the example with apples. But I mean, even with something like the broccoli or kale or cauliflower, I mean, some of these produce items could last a long time in the refrigeration chain once they've been harvested. I mean, it could be sometimes several weeks until you get the food. I mean, especially here in Hawaii, they have to ship over and fly over some of the food. And there's reliable declines within, I think, 48 hours of certain phytonutrients in broccoli. And what if those are the phytonutrients you need to fight against cancer? They're not going to be in your food if your produce was harvested and shipped over. So if you guys shop at the farmer's market, which I encourage everybody to do, one of the questions you want to ask the farmers at the farmer's market is, hey, when did you harvest this produce? They could say, oh, I harvested it 3 days ago and I've been selling it at markets and now I'm selling it again today. Or they could say, hey, I woke up this morning at 4 a.m. and I cut it and brought it here. I'm selling it to you now. What's the better farmer to buy from, right? The one that just cut it off the vine because it's going to have a higher levels of nutrition. And furthermore, once you buy that, then don't just let it sit in your fridge for another week. Use it as soon as you can. So go to farmers markets as often as you can. I mean, I don't even have to deal with that in many cases for all the foods I buy. The foods I buy are growing in my backyard. And actually just last week before I came out here, I was in my backyard and I was just looking over my bed of spinach. And my bed of spinach was sitting there and I'm like, all right, John, let's do something fun today. And I do this occasionally, but the spinach is kind of low. So like I dug down to a little leaf of spinach that was sitting up and I just went down and there's no harvest time because it went right from the leaf into my mouth like I was a deer, right, grazing on stuff. I'm like, this is great. Plus, that was the best spinach. I mean, I just did that for fun because I like being crazy sometimes. But normally when I harvest my food, it sits alive on the vine. It's outside growing. When I'm hungry, I go outside, pick it, bring it inside, wash, prepare it, and then I eat it. I don't just like harvest it. Oh, now let's harvest it. Now let's put it in the fridge and let's let it sit in the fridge for a week until I eat it. No, you're losing valuable nutrients. And a lot of people don't think about this. Another thing that's important is age off the vine, which is kind of similar to when was it harvested. And then also another thing that's very important is post-harvest practices. So in the industry, they have something known as hydrocooling, which the field workers are in California, maybe they're harvesting cauliflower, and they cut it out the field. The field's like, 70 degrees, 80 degrees in California, middle of summer. And then they take that cauliflower head and they put it in a refrigerated truck and they drop that temperature down to like 32, right above or at freezing. And so this basically is hydrocooling, so it quote unquote locks in the freshness for the industry. And they do that, and what effect does it have actually on the nutrients in the food when they're doing that? Of course, if you kept that cauliflower at the ambient temperature from the field, the nutrients would definitely decline faster. But when I harvest my cauliflower, when it's 70 degrees out, it doesn't go in the fridge or whatever. I just harvest it and take it inside and eat it, right? So, and you never know what kind of post-harvest practices they're doing, especially when they're conventional foods, they have much more flexibility on all the things they could do with it, including spray things like Roundup as a post-harvesting ripening agent, which is really nasty stuff. And so another question is, how was the fruit or vegetable stored after they harvested it? Was it stored in refrigerated trucks? Was it stored in an oxygen-deprived environment? Is it like a hydroponic lettuce or greens that still have the roots on it? Those are still living. Those are some of the best things you could buy, right? And then another thing is the cultivars. So the cultivars or the variety could greatly affect the nutritional content of the foods you're eating. So, for example, certain watermelons that are like deep, rich, red pigmented may have more lycopene than a watermelon that's kind of like light pink. And unfortunately, in the industry, they're not breeding for nutrients in most cases. There are some people working with that, but most breeders in the industry are working to increase the shelf life, to grow that pink tomato that they could pick, and it could be off the vine and shipped to you, and it could stay fresh for a month and not go bad. These are the things that they're mostly concerned about, not like the nutritional quality, and it's quite sad. So, this is an industry, but once again, if you grow your own food, you get to choose what you want to grow, and you could grow more nutrient-rich fruits and vegetables, like some of the really deep pigmented ones. A really good resource for learning which fruits and vegetables are the most nutritious is a book I would recommend. It's actually called Eating on the Wild Side. And in this book, they talk about different varieties of apples that have more nutrition, than others that could have significantly more antioxidants. And these are the things that we need to help keep us young and ward off disease. Now, I will tell you in advance that as much as I like the antioxidant content information in that book, some of the methods of preparation and recipes in that book I would not, or most of them actually, I would not approve of. They're not healthy. So the question is, how do you know what's the most nutritious food? And my answer is to test the produce you not only buy, but that you grow. And there's an inexpensive meter that actually I brought here tonight that you guys could do that. This is called a brix meter or a refractometer, and this is a special one. It's a 0 to 32 brix meter or refractometer. These are available on Amazon. Just make sure you get one with a good review, with a lot of people reviewing it and high, stars. And they're only $30. But with this device, you can test the quality of the produce, and you guys are going to learn in a second why this is so important.
What's the name again?
Brix meter, BRIX, or also known as refractometer.
Thank you.
And this is normally used by grape growers who make wine, because when they're harvesting the grapes, they want a really high sugar content, because it's that sugar content that then is transformed into the alcohol content, which is why people ferment grapes in the first place. And unfortunately, most farmers, if you go to the farmer's market and ask farmers, hey, do you have a brix meter and test your stuff? They're going to have no idea. Every farmer should know what this is, because this allows them to know your produce ripeness, number one, and number two, how good your produce is. And there are some USDA standards that people should be abiding by, some very minimal standards on when you're allowed to harvest your produce items. And unfortunately, many of the different produce items that I've tested, most of them don't fare too well. And actually, this meter could also get you in a lot of trouble. This meter actually got me kicked out of a fruit festival, a raw food fruit festival, for sharing with the people that organize it the quality of the fruit there. Because my personal belief is that if you're at a fruit festival paying $1,000 to go to this fruit festival, they should have some pretty good quality fruit. But unfortunately, there was some fruit I tested that was poor, and there was some that was excellent, but a lot of it was just good or average. And there's simple ways, if they just tested the fruit before they bought it with this meter, they could say, hey, we could get these watermelons from this company or this farm, or we could get this ones on this pallet from a different farm, and maybe the ones on this pallet are significantly sweeter and more nutritious than the ones on this pallet, but we're just getting those because they're cheaper. You could make the decision if you have the knowledge. And I'll take all questions at the end, so please write those down. So let's talk more about the brix. Most people think of it as just sugar, but brix is much more than just sugar. And it says, within a given species of plant, the crop with the higher refractive index, or brix, will have a higher sugar content, higher mineral content, higher protein content, and greater specific gravity or density. This adds up to a sweeter tasting, more minerally nutritious food with lower nitrate and water content and lower freezing point and better storage attributes. And so if we continue on, here's a standard brix chart for many different common crops. And if you want to look up this chart yourself online, you could just do a Google search for brix chart PDF, and it should come up with this. And to explain this, normally it's on the big wall, but a lot of you guys may not be able to see this in the back. But basically what it is, you got the different fruit or vegetable, many common ones, and then you have 4 columns. You have a column for poor, a column for average, a column for good, and a column for excellent. So for example, if you have an apple and you test the apple and the apple reads 6, that's a poor apple. If you test the apple and it reads 10, that's an average apple. If you test it and it's 14, it's a good apple. And if you test it and it's 18, it's an excellent apple. And if you test it and it's above 18, then it will probably give you an orgasm. Just kidding. But I swear, my friend, I was geeking out with brix meters with my friend John Valenzuela. He's a California rare fruit grower. And he's like, John, I had these cherimoyas. There are 32 on the brix. And I'm like going, oh my God, because cherimoyas, like, they're pretty high, but 32, that's above the range that the refractometer goes, and that's actually quite rare. So what I'm going to do for you guys tonight is I got a homegrown orange that was from somebody that came to the VSH talk on Kauai, and we're just going to go ahead and open this up and show you guys how the brix meter actually works, and I'm going to pass this around so everybody could actually see what it looks like on the inside. So all you need to do to work the brix meter is just get a little bit of a juice from the fruit or vegetable you're testing. And if it's a vegetable, it's a little bit harder to get the juice out of a vegetable. So what you're going to do is like use a little garlic press to press out some of the juice out of the leaf or whatever. Or you could just, use a juicer to juice it. So I'm just going to go ahead and squeeze a little bit of the orange juice on here. Takes a little bit just on this little lens. You put the little flap down, and then you're just going to look into it kind of like, a pirate on one of those ships trying to like look for the gold. Aye, matey, I see the brix number. All right, so I'm tuning it in here so I could actually send it around. So yeah, this pretty much looks like a pretty much straight up right at 10. So if you want to just look in there, might have to look up at the light in it, but you'll see what it looks like. And if we go down to my chart here, so we go to oranges, and actually a poor orange is 6. So thank God this is not a poor orange. An average orange is 10, so that's an average orange. But a good orange is, let's see here, 16, and an excellent orange is 20. So, I mean, that orange could be twice as high with the brix number. And, I mean, I'll tell you guys in advance, we really don't need these brix meters because we have the best brix sensors that each of us owns free and clear. It's our taste buds, right? Unfortunately, most people don't have experienced taste buds to know if something is good or not. If you go to Costco or Whole Foods and buy some organic blueberries down there, you eat the blueberries and you're like, all right, these are what organic blueberries taste like, but they're from the conventional or even organic agriculture system. Most of the food I've tested from conventional agriculture, organic or regular, aside from grapes, that's kind of an exception, are generally in the right around poor, average, or good categories. They're rarely in the excellent category. So then your taste buds get accustomed to these poor tasting blueberries, and you just think that's what they are. And then when you get a really high quality one, then you have recognition, and in your brain you know, wow, that's a really good blueberry. Now you compare all other blueberries to that one you had on that farm up in Oregon where you picked it right off the plant. You actually didn't even pick it. You put your hand underneath it and the blueberry fell off the plant right in your hand and you just ate it. And it was like peak ripeness, grown in really good soil. And I know you guys have all experienced something that you've tasted that's really good, and you know when you go to the store it's just not quite as good. And it's really important to have higher quality produce, as we'll learn in this next slide, or the next one after this. But what we want to look at is when you're getting a brix meter, I do encourage you guys to get an analog brix meter like the one I'm passing around today. Once again, they are quite inexpensive, $20 to $30. And when you're looking at that, you're going to see in there's a pretty much cut and dry demarcation line. So if you've looked in there already, or if it's going around, you'll see it'll be like white on the bottom, and then on the top half, it'll be like a blue. And it's pretty much like black or white and then blue. And instead of that, that just shows the number, which is good so you can read the number. But what we really want to look for, even more important than just the number, is at the point that the number changes, we want to see it really to be shady and like go into gradients. Instead of just a white and blue, we want it like shades of blue, and it wants to transition into the blue from the white color. And that's what this slide is attempting to show, but it's a really poor slide. But when it's more kind of fuzzy, that indicates higher levels of the trace minerals, which are really important. And the reason why this is all really important and we should be concerned with this is because this slide here where they've actually tested grocery store green beans and they grew garden beans under not even under ideal growing conditions, but using some of the practices to grow high quality food. And so the brix on the grocery store beans, when they tested it, was 4.2. The brix on the garden beans were just 2 points higher at 6.1. And the taste on the grocery store beans were garbage, but the taste on the garden beans were decent. Now, another thing that's very interesting is the pH on the grocery store beans were 5.5, and the pH on the garden beans were 6.4. And I know many people may be into this whole acid-alkaline diet, and I encourage everybody to eat more alkaline-rich foods, which are, of course, fruits and vegetables. But, a good quality grown fruit or vegetable will have a higher pH in general. But more importantly than that is the nutritional quality, and I wish I could blow this slide up so you guys could see it much larger. But basically, they took these grocery store green beans and the garden beans and they sent it off to a lab for analysis of different trace minerals such as manganese, zinc, iron, copper, potassium, calcium, protein. Anyways, on the zinc, for example, which is second one down, the zinc is over twice as much in the homegrown garden beans, having a higher brix grown in better growing conditions, right?
Is it the same species of bean?
I'm not exactly sure of the test, but that would also affect it as well. But yeah. And then also the calcium is almost twice as much. And then here's the interesting thing. The protein content is almost twice as much. So instead of like 20, it's maybe 35 on the scale there. And so what if, our foods were more nutritious? You could eat the same volume of food, but get twice as many trace minerals, twice as much protein. And especially one of the only things that have been proven to increase longevity is to eat less calories, right? We want to eat less calories, but get proper nutrition. But if you're eating minerally deficient foods, you're not going to get all the nutrition, so you might have to eat extra food to get the nutrition you need. And then furthermore, they just talk about some of the common trace minerals. But I like to believe that besides just the trace minerals, which are important in our diets, another thing that's very important are the phytonutrients and phytochemicals. And we call them phytonutrients and phytochemicals, but what they are to the plant are they're just simply plant metabolites. And for example, a tomato, many of you guys may or may not know, but a tomato can make up to 300 different plant metabolites. These are different things in the tomato that the tomato, which is a little chemical factory, makes on its own, and it makes it because the tomato plant needs all these different nutrients or phytochemicals or plant metabolites to protect it from nature. Could be from bugs, could be from disease, could be from the scalding sun so it doesn't get sunburned, right? And it creates all these things so that it could live and thrive in its environment. And when we eat the foods, now we get those nutrients that the plant had. And if the plant doesn't have a full range of nutrients that it could draw up from the soil, your foliar feeding, on the leaves, then it can't make all the different plant metabolites that it has been designed and programmed to make. So it may not be as nutritious, otherwise. So I like to think that the more nutritious your plant is, vitamins and mineral-wise, the more phytonutrients, which are a really important component of the foods. So the current agriculture system, produce is grown for profit, not quality. And this is actually quite sad. Farming is a big business. I mean, even organic is a larger part of the business of farming. I mean, most organic produce you buy, unfortunately, I would like to think it's small mom and pop stores and people owning their farms, but it's big, giant conglomerate agriculture companies that got into organics because they see there's a lot of money into it and it's growing rapidly. So yet another reason to support local farmers, that are growing in a good, high quality ways. And my question is, what if every American checked their brix, right? Today, me and my girlfriend were at Whole Foods here, and they actually have organic blueberries on sale for an amazing price. 1 pint for $3.99, which is amazing deal for anywhere, nonetheless, here in Hawaii. I mean, I know they are imported. I try to eat local stuff, and I'm going to farmer's market the other day and eat as much local stuff that's ripe as I can, but if I can't find those, then I'm going to eat some blueberries, because I like them. But we bought the blueberries in a package, and even though the package was the same, I could tell by looking, because I'm trained in this, I've been doing it for 22 years, that there's 2 different kinds of blueberries they're selling in the package. Some of the berries were nice and large, and they were kind of like a little bit glossy, not really glossy, but a little bit glossy. And the other kinds were maybe, some of them were pretty large, but they had like this white kind of like haze or film on them. And I told my girlfriend right when we were picking them, I'm like, hun, you want to pick out the ones that have the nice, big, more glossy berries that are larger. They're generally better. And this is just from my overall past experience. So actually, she picked out most of the ones that were good, but she got some that I might not have picked out. And then then when we go to eat them, she's eating one of the ones with the glossy ones, and I'm eating the ones that were not so glossy. And she's like, these are decent blueberries, And I'm like, I'm eating these. I'm like, these are not good blueberries, hun. I'm like, then I look, I'm like, which ones are you eating? I'm like, oh, you're eating the good ones. Here, switch me. And she's like, you're right, these aren't so good. And if I brix tested them, I'm sure the ones I was eating were not good, right? And then then I showed her some of the tips of the trade. So we flipped over the package. And I'm like, hun, on every package of blueberries or fruit that's sold, they have to have some kind of like code number or lot number to track it in case there's a food outbreak. So on the lot that had the good blueberries, they actually printed with some kind of thermal ink thing on the plastic a lot number. And then on the other ones that were not good quality, they actually just had a sticker stuck on them. So, I mean, these are just small things. Even though they're from the same farm, which are actually the importer, they're a little bit different. So pay attention. So also, if you go to Whole Foods, you are paying top dollar. But one of the cool things about Whole Foods that many people don't know is that they'll let you sample any fruit or vegetable item before you buy it. Just ask the produce guy. Say, hey, I'm considering buying this. I want to know how good they taste. Can you cut one open for me? And it's written into their law or guidelines is that they're supposed to have high levels of customer service and let you taste stuff before you buy it if you want to try a sample. So then you could know before you buy it if something's good or not. And then furthermore, if you buy it at Whole Foods and it's not good, take it back and get a refund. We're going to take back actually the bad blueberries that we bought by mistake, and we're going to return them and say we're not accepting these. We want our money back, and then we're going to go and buy the good ones. But if everybody did that with their fruit and vegetables, right, the farmers would go out of business because they couldn't sell the crappy fruits and vegetables to the stores because the stores would say, we keep getting these returned. We can't operate a business like this. And they would say, Whole Foods, if Whole Foods said, hey, blueberry farmers, man, if you're not producing at least good to excellent blueberries, we're not going to buy them from you, right? Then the nutrition quality raises. Unfortunately, nobody tests their brix except crazy raw foodists like me. That being said, at least in Japan they get it somewhat. Here's a picture here. You guys probably can't see that, but there's a picture of some apples, and it's 2,100 yen, so I don't know who's in the commodities of knowing how much the currency exchanges are. But anyways, 2,100 yen when I did the conversion was about $21, and that's not per kilo or per pound. That's per each apple. So this is a $21 apple in Japan, and it's known as a Sakai Inchi. And that means world's best. And so in Japan, at least in some parts of Japan, there's farmers that actually grow for quality specifically because they have specialized fruit shops that you could buy $21 apples and probably a lot of other really high-priced, expensive fruit that they use for gifts and whatnot. And what the farmers will do, number one, they'll really add a lot of nutrients to the soil, but number two, they'll massively thin and prune their fruit. So the apple tree, and they have them all espaliered and stuff. Just ask my friend Ken Love, who's been over there to see all this. But they have an apple tree, it'll have 100 apples on it in the beginning of the season, maybe 200. The farmer will basically pick off 80% or 90% of the apples just to leave 10 on there, or a small percentage of the apples, so that each of the apples that are on there are getting more nutrients from the tree into that apple. So they're much higher quality, more nutritional value, and taste a lot better. So challenge number 3, and this is one that's very interesting. Many people don't think of this one. This is limited food choices. So far I've covered the right, eating the proper fruits and vegetables, and then ensuring the ones that you're eating are the highest quality. But even beyond that, there's limited food choices. And one way that food choices are limited are self-imposed limiting food choices. So research shows that people eat the same foods day in, day out. You may go to the store and you may always buy the kale and the bananas and the coconut, and sometimes for breakfast you might have, hopefully not, a coffee and toast. But we'll all get into patterns, right? And if you're eating a limited amount and types of food, you're getting a very limited scope of nutrients. So that's one way that your diet could be limited. Second way is the agriculture system will self-impose their limits on you and what you can eat. Grocery stores only sell a small percentage of the edible foods that are available on the planet. So let's talk about this a bit more. Self-imposed, many people eat the same foods each and every day and follow a routine of a certain recipe they like. So what I encourage people to do is, instead of making the same thing each and every day, is to make it a fun game. Like a game I play with myself all the time is, hey, I'm going to eat something different today than what I did yesterday. And so, hey, yesterday I had pineapple, so today I'm going to eat long-ons or lychee, or I'm going to eat something totally different. If I'm harvesting, spinach in my garden yesterday, hey, I'm going to go over and harvest my, Egyptian spinach the next day, or I'm going to harvest my red romaine lettuce the following day. Because I always have choices. I always have lots of different things available. And if you go to the grocery store, you always get kale because you have a kale smoothie. Then, you could get, escarole or endive, or, get some other kind of different thing you could eat. And so I want to encourage people to purchase the foods at the grocery store that you haven't tried before, maybe you haven't had recently. How many people in here have recently purchased or bought or picked dandelion greens? Cool, you guys rule. But yeah, very few people. So, dandelions are an amazing bitter green. Many people may not like them, but I encourage everybody to get used to those. They're very detoxifying for the liver. Just 2 weeks ago, actually, I was in my backyard. I harvested all the dandelion roots out of one of my raised beds that actually just grew in on their own. I didn't necessarily plant them there. And I harvested all my dandelion roots, and then I juiced them and made a dandelion root juice. And I'll tell you that the dandelion root juice tasted better than dandelion green juice, but it was a lot of work because I had to pull up the roots, and when I'd pull up a root, part of it would snap, so I'd have to get in there really deep, and it was a fun experience. But I probably wouldn't necessarily recommend doing it because it took a lot of time. But once again, dandelion roots is not something that I had had in several years. And it was like part of my game, like, okay, I'm eating something different, man. And I made a video actually on that. And then go to your favorite farmers markets to find foods that are not available at the grocery store. Here in Hawaii, if many of you guys moved here from the mainland, you're used to a certain variety of foods and certain kinds of foods, and so you go to the store and you look for those foods. But here in Hawaii, as we'll learn a little bit later in my presentation, there's so many other different kinds of tropical vegetables and also tropical fruits that really thrive here and will grow really easily. So anyways, a current agriculture system, grocery stores have the appearance of abundance with over maybe 200 varieties of different fruits and vegetables you could buy, but that's just a drop in the bucket compared to all the different varieties of fruits and vegetables on the planet. There's over 7,000 different edible species and kinds of fruits and vegetables and edible plants on the planet. So I'd recommend everybody to go to a website, PFAF, that's Plants for a Future database. So it's pfaf.org, where they have a searchable database of all 7,000 different kinds of plants. So I try to grow as many of these kinds of plants as I possibly can in my garden, because farmers are not doing that. And if you're just eating food out of the grocery store, or even the farmer's market, you're eating a severely limited amount of different foods. So the way to increase your variety is to visit farmers markets and talk to farmers and ask them for different things that they may be growing. Go to ethnic markets that have unique foods in your area, and go on a wild food walk in your area. So I don't know who teaches wild foods, but there's many different wild foods that'll grow that you could harvest and eat. Just make sure that you go on somebody that's been trained in this, so that you could find out what they are. In my opinion, some of the wild foods actually have higher levels of phytonutrients and phytochemicals than the counterparts that have been hybridized that we're buying. And of course, grow your own. And one of my favorite sayings by another one of my favorite plant-based doctors, Dr. Joel Fuhrman, who wrote a book, Eat to Live, which I would also recommend to you guys, is the nutrient you need the most is the one that you're not getting. So if you never grew your own food before, that's all right. These next plants I'm going to share with you guys really quickly because I'm quickly running out of time, are some of the plants that you will want to grow even if you never grew anything before in your life. The picture here is just a house with basically a food forest in the front yard. They got some fruit trees, but many different plants that are just growing food. So even if you have a lawn in front of your house and some shrubs and some trees, if you're successful at growing those, you'll be able to grow some of these special vegetables that are actually originally from the tropics, that literally you plant them just once and then they just grow for years and years and years, and you just get to go outside to a tree and pick lettuce-like leaves to put in your salad instead of having to go and buy $4.99 organic romaine hearts for a 3-pack from California that's of much poor quality. So I'm going to go over these really fast because I'm running out of time, but number one is katuk, K-A-T-U-K. This is a shrub-like plant, and the leafy greens on this, they taste like peanuts. They have a nice nutty flavor. They're amazing. I would grow a katuk hedge at my property line to like block out people from getting in there, plus all the leaves are edible. I do not recommend eating these in high quantities or juicing them. They can be problematic, as with most fruits or vegetables. Fruits and vegetables make, once again, the plant compounds within them for their benefit, not necessarily ours, and in some cases eating too much of any one healthy food could be not healthy, as in a case in Northern California where these ladies were buying organic kale and making kale smoothies every day, and they ended up being toxic with some heavy metals due to the soil conditions where the kale was being grown. So that's why I encourage diet rotation, which we talked about, some of the varieties. If you always eat a little bit of many different things, you're going to less likely be get yourself into problems. And I have different, different health conditions that katuk may be helpful with, but I want to caution everybody against like, oh, I have high cholesterol, so I'm going to eat the cholesterol-lowering plant that John showed me. The answer to high cholesterol is not eating the cholesterol-lowering plant. It's to get rid of the thing that's giving you the high cholesterol in the first place, which is anything with a mother, whether that's milk, cheese, eggs, or meat. And fish, they had mothers too. And so another thing that's really good, and this is my number one favorite one that you should all grow, because this grows as a nice big tree and has nice big leaves that have a really mild flavor. If you guys don't like strong, bitter tasting dandelion greens, you want to grow this one. This is known as bele, B-E-L-E, also known as edible hibiscus, but there are actually many other different edible hibiscuses. So you would want to tell them that you want Abelmochus manihat. Sorry, I didn't major in Latin.
Spell it, please.
It's okay, so it's Abelmoschusmanihot, or just simply bele, B-E-L-E. Most people will know what that is, and actually that's a native plant to the Pacific Islands that people in this region of the world would just grow and eat as one of their traditional foods. And that's actually something else I really like looking into, is traditional plant foods of different peoples from around the world. And those are some of the foods I want to eat, the ones that they've been eating for thousands of years, not these new creations that we're coming up with. But yeah, lots of different health conditions they may be helpful with, but mild flavor. And they're really good for wraps. They grow nice large leaves. You could put some guacamole, some pico de gallo in there, and roll it, more vegetables in there, roll it up and eat it. And then another one is known as Gynera procumbens, also known as longevity spinach or cholesterol spinach. This one was traditionally used in Thai folk medicine.
Can you please spell it?
Gynera, G-Y-N-U-R-A, procumbens, P-R-O-C-U-M-B-E-N-S.
Thank you.
Then, of course, the next one, known as Okinawan spinach. So that's one that's really common. The other one is related. This one actually is known as Gynera bicolor. I actually like this one a little bit better than the previous one, which is known as the longevity spinach. And this one's fairly similar, but this one actually has purple leaves on the bottom side, but it has similar nutrition. But also you're going to get the benefits of the purple leaves, which are the high anthocyanin content. And they did a study Unfortunately, they did a rodent study, and I don't encourage or advocate the use of any rodent studies myself, but for the better or worse, they took rodents and they fed them a junk food diet, unfortunately, including high fructose sugar water, basically. So they simulated a standard American diet. They fed it to these rodents. The rodents, they gained weight, they had poor blood sugar response, and they had, coronary challenges with the hardening of the arteries and whatnot, right? And so they did that for half the study. Then at half the study, they separated out the rodents into two groups. One half, they continued to feed all the junk food. The other half, they fed the junk food and only added one thing. They added purple carrot juice, fresh purple carrot juice to these rodents. And the rodents that had the junk food with the purple carrot juice lost the weight, resolved the blood sugar issues, and reversed the problems with their artery blockages. And so I'm not telling you guys this so that you guys could eat a junk food diet and drink purple carrot juice. I want you guys just to drink the purple carrot juice and eat purple pigmented foods so you can get all the benefits without all the bad stuff, which is going back to my first point, which was increase amounts of fruits and vegetables and decrease and eliminate the foods that are causing the problem in the first place. So another one that I have up here is Chinese chives. This is one that's really simple and easy to grow. They have a nice, really mild, one of the mildest onion flavors that you could find. And many people are not aware that many people might eat onions or garlic for their health benefits. I believe they're more like a medicine than a food. I like to include them sometimes for their medicinal qualities. But even when you're eating the onion bulbs, the onion greens, such as in these chives, are much more nutritionally dense than the bulbs themselves. And the previous slides that I showed you are perennial plants. So if you plant them just once and you halfway maintain them, or it just rains on them, they're going to just keep growing for you. So you don't have to lift another finger. Plus, because they're from a climate zone similar to this, they're used to all the different bugs and diseases. So you're not going to have to keep spraying them or messing with them like standard imported vegetables that are not from your climate zone. Now, there's many other different beneficial leafy greens. We'll cover some of these. Here's a picture of me and my dad in my front yard in Northern California taken 2 weeks ago with all my beautiful ashataba plants, one of my favorite edible medicinal foods. And right over here I talk about many wild vegetables have higher levels of phytochemicals than cultivated ones. And they also have unique flavors. That's something else that I've learned to love is just all the uniqueness in varieties of foods. It's so incredible to taste so many different things and just be blown away by some of them. And I do have to say my taste buds are perverted, but they're perverted in a good way. I'll eat like things that are really bitter and I'll be like, wow, these taste really good. I'll make a juice that I think tastes good. I'm like, man, this tastes like nothing, tastes like water. I'll give it to my girlfriend. She's like, John, that's really bad. So, I don't know. But some may taste stronger. And some may taste stronger, but you will, build up tolerance and you'll actually get to like some of the stronger flavors. Anyways, my favorite here is actually known as ashataba or Angelica quisque. It's related to celery. And when you cut this plant, it's very interesting. It bleeds a yellow sap. We would bleed red if we got cut, but this bleeds a yellow sap. It's actually known as chalcones, and this is a special polyphenol. They've done a lot of research on this, and it can be helpful against many different situations like shedding visceral fat, Alzheimer's, skin and lung cancer, cholesterol, and high blood pressure. And this is pretty interesting, actually. It's one of the rare vegetables that has been said to contain vitamin B12. Now, I don't try to get all my B12 from ashataba or any plant food. I personally, as I recommend every vegan, vegetarian, even meat eaters to take a B12 supplement, because a B12 deficiency is not just among plant-based eaters, but it's among everybody, because we are destroying the soils, in my opinion, and we're losing the beneficial microbes that the cows would eat to get their B12, or that we would get if the plant absorbed it. Anyways, there's research online that says it has B12.
Excuse
Oh,
me.
ashataba, A-S-H.
A-S-H.
ITABA. And so if you're looking to grow that, actually, I brought seeds. My girlfriend has some seeds, and we're selling some seeds of some of these special plants at the end so you guys could buy the seeds and grow them yourself. So you don't have to even find the seeds because we brought them for you. Another one that I really like, and because I live in Las Vegas, Nevada now, we have a very challenging summertime where the heat is in excess of 100 degrees for like several months on end. So all these ones that I'm showing you guys grow in the heat of Las Vegas, 100+ degree weather, so they shouldn't have really too much of a problem dealing with the 80s year round or here. So another one I like is actually Egyptian spinach, or known as molokia, and this is related to okra, and it has actually a mucilaginous texture when you eat the leaves, but they're very neutral. And I learned actually about the ashataba and the Egyptian spinach at the Natural Products Expo. The Natural Products Expo is the trade show for the health food industry. So health food store owners go there to find the new product that they're going to bring into their stores and sell you. And so they were trying to sell me Egyptian spinach little tablets with powdered Egyptian spinach put into a tablet, or powdered ashataba tablets. And being half Chinese, I'm really cheap, and I'm like, how could I get the benefits of this Egyptian spinach that's more nutritious than 12 times more beta carotene than broccoli and 9 times more calcium than spinach, than having to keep buying their stupid tablets? Well, hey, I could find the seeds and I could plant them in my garden, and I could have unlimited leafy greens, and it's always better to eat your fresh fruits and vegetables fresh instead of dried, right? So then I just started growing them myself, so that's with this one also. But yeah, this one really loves the heat. My girlfriend's parents grew it also in Houston, and actually it did better in Houston with some humidity than it did for me even in Las Vegas. And this just bountiful amounts of nice tender greens with a nice neutral flavor, a little bit mucilaginous. And then my solution to poor food quality, because we've been talking about that, is to grow your own. You can make a significant dent in the produce you purchase by growing your own. Now, I'm not at the point where I'm growing all my own food. One day I'll own 10 acres, maybe here on Maui actually, where I'll be able to grow 99% of what I'm going to be eating. But I do what I can. I live in a standard American tract home like maybe many of you guys do. Even on an 8,000 square foot lot, I'm able to grow most all the vegetables and herbs that I need, depending on the time of year. And if everybody just grew at least partially of what they grew, you could have high quality food that tastes better, more nutritionally complete, and then go out and fill in with farmers markets and buy some other things. But then you could have higher quality because you could add things to the soil to grow higher quality food. You could have an unlimited choice of varieties. So you could get a seed catalog, like I would encourage everybody in here to go to a website, rareseeds.com. Once again, that's rareseeds, R-A-R-E, seeds.com, and request their free seed catalog. Even if you're never going to grow anything in your whole life, just request their seed catalog. They'll send it to you for free. It's on their dime. I want you guys to pick that seed catalog. They have some really beautiful pictures, and they have over 1,600 varieties of fruits and vegetables, edibles, and other plants you could buy the seeds of. And you'll see all the different varieties of carrots and how they look cosmic purple and red, and all these different cauliflowers. And there's so many different things that you could be eating that you're not in. Some of the descriptions just make you want to eat them. And then hopefully maybe you'll buy the seeds and you'll plant them and you will eat them. Anyways, there's other health benefits from gardening, including getting vitamin D from the sun, getting exercise. That's how I got all my muscles. I don't go to gyms. I don't work out. I just work in the garden, lift juicer boxes and ship them, lift heavy produce boxes when I'm buying produce by the case. You also get a connection with nature. That's something that many kids these days don't have anymore, and we should all have a natural connection. That's why I love half the day I'm usually on the computer in the morning, then the other half of the day I'm out in the garden with my hands in the dirt, planting, harvesting, doing all kinds of compost, tumbling, sifting compost. Also de-stress. I like to say or instead of focusing on the word stress, I like to be the opposite. So be in harmony or be in peace, to focus on peace instead of stress. And then also where your food's coming from. Very important. And what was sprayed on it, and the nutrients or fertilizers that were used to grow it. So many people that are really hardcore vegans may not realize that the animal agriculture industry produces tons of manure. And in my opinion, a lot of that manure is contaminated with whether that's a GMO corn and soy remnants that ran through the cow, came out in their excrement, or whether that's drugs, or even worse, heavy metals that are actually being put in to the fertilizers that grow the animal feed. It's not really allowed to put in, human feed. It goes to the animal, then they're using the manure to grow your organic vegetables. And then you just go and buy your organic vegetables. Oh yeah, I'm vegan, I'm buying vegetables, but it's grown with animal waste byproduct. And furthermore, even worse than the manure, right? They're using things like blood and bone meal, which are directly, related to the animal slaughter industry. that are being used to grow the organic fruits and vegetables you guys buy. So if this is important to you, you guys could grow your own and choose not to use those inputs. You don't need those inputs to grow your own fruits and vegetables. And furthermore, if this is also important to you, ask farmers what nutrients they're adding to their soil to grow the food, if it's important to you. I mean, another concept is, even if you're buying organic or conventional food and you don't want any harm to come on any animal on earth, they're spraying even organic pesticides on your lettuce so that your lettuce won't have an aphid outbreak, right? And the way to handle aphids are not to even spray any organic pesticides on it, but what I talked about earlier when I had the brix slide up, many people don't realize, and there's all these little things that have come to me over time, and they just click in my head like, wow, John, that makes so much sense. And what I've learned is if you have a high brix, you saw in the high brix, there's also higher protein content, right? There's almost twice as much protein, not quite on the green beans they were testing. But when you have a higher protein content in the fruit or vegetable, specifically vegetable, those proteins cannot be digested by insects, right? Inadequate proteins are easily digested by insects. So basically what I'm saying is healthier plants can create more complex proteins, create more nutritious food for us. These are food for us, not the insects, because the insects will try to taste it. They won't be able to digest it. They'll go to a weak plant somewhere else to eat. So in that way, we don't actually have to spray anything in an ideal world if you have ideal soil. I mean, this is all, more like the Garden of Eden, and you're waiting for the apple to drop in your hand and eating it. But this is how nature should work and how it has worked for thousands of years before we started to get involved with man-made chemical farming and even organic farming using these manures because it's a waste product of an industry that I don't want to support. So not all gardens are created equal, and this is very important. Just because you have a home garden or somebody grew something into their house doesn't mean you're automatically going to have higher quality stuff than you could buy at the store. Unfortunately, there's been many times when I go to a farmer's market and buy produce, and actually this happened in Las Vegas. I bought watermelons from two organic growers in Las Vegas. I took those home. I also bought an organic watermelon from Whole Foods, and the one actually I bought at Whole Foods had a higher brix than the ones that I bought from two local organic farmers in Las Vegas. And actually I made a video about that, and that's the travesty. It shouldn't be like that, right? So even if you're growing stuff at home or buying stuff from a farmer, doesn't mean they're going to have any higher quality than the store. Might be less. But there are ways that you can improve what you're doing to have higher quality produce, and number one is, of course, compost. And when you think compost, you think, oh yeah, I got a compost pile, John. I put my greens and my browns in there. It's high heat. It cooks for a while. It cooks down. Then I use that to grow my stuff. Well, that compost is great. That's known as a bacterial-based compost. But there's another kind of compost that the forest would create when the leaves drop from the trees. A tree may get old and it falls down, and basically the tree, will compost down in place over time. It doesn't happen because it's being mixed with nitrogen and carbon. It basically breaks down through a slow process of mushrooms breaking it down, and this creates a high fungal dominated soil, which then will help to nourish your garden in something that it is lacking in. And the biggest dinosaur kale leaves were bigger, wider than my head, and they're about this long, wider than my head, at my friend's place up in Portland, Oregon, where they just took basically wood chips from the tree chipping companies. They said, oh yeah, dump your wood chips here. They spread hundreds of truckloads of these wood chips all along their property and let them rot down for several years. And after a couple, 3 years in Portland, the bottom layer was just this really black, rich soil. They also inoculated it with special mycelium, and they grew this fungal-rich compost to be able to grow these really, large plants that are really nutritious. So that's also very important. Another thing that's very important to me are the trace minerals. I talked about this earlier, how they're missing in conventional farming. So I go out of my way to add extra ones to make sure that they are in my garden in the form of rock dust that contains up to 70 different trace minerals. Basalt and volcanic rocks have some of the highest levels of trace minerals and some of the best kinds. I use a horticultural grade rock dust. There are other kinds you could get just at any rock and stone quarry that pulls up rocks for underlayments of streets and whatnot. In the process of milling rocks, they always have this fine powder or dust that's a waste product for them. So you could get some of that. Also, there's things such as ocean solids. I do eat seaweeds for some trace minerals also, but the ocean solids such as sea solids or sea salt could provide up to 90 different minerals, but you have to be very careful when using salt-containing products in your garden, because much like too much salt could be very harmful for us, and most Americans eat way too much salt. too much sodium for your plants could also be very harmful. So the dilution ratio of, like, say, some good quality sea salt, 1 teaspoon of sea salt mixed in with 1 gallon of water, watering your plants in the soil and the leaves once every 2 weeks. So you don't really need that much, but you need to get some trace minerals in there. There are also sea solid products that have the sodium remove, which are a much safer way to add the trace minerals. The product is called Gropal, Gropal. And of course, another component that's very important to your garden as well as us is the microbiome. These are the beneficial probiotics that live within us. They comprise part of our immune system, help us digest our food, and make metabolites actually after we digest our food that are antioxidants and do so many other things for us. They're the workhorses in the garden that break down the organic matter and break down the rock dust and turn it into nutrients for your plants. And even organic farming and especially commercial farming, they nuke especially conventional farming, nukes all the bacteria and fungi. And even with regular organic farming, where they're tilling the soil, that will also destroy copious amounts of the bacteria and fungal networks in the soil. So that's actually counterproductive to till your garden. So I teach a no-till gardening method. I can't get really into a lot of this. I will recommend you to my website, growingyourgreens.com, where I have over 1,200 videos going into more detail on all these growing practices, showing examples of how it's done, showing examples of how I do it in my backyard. And then on the bottom I say manures may be contaminated, and I don't necessarily recommend them. And so coming down to my summary of my talk today, basically 3 things. Preferably eliminate or massively reduce the consumption of all animal products and processed foods, even the vegan processed foods. And corresponding with that is to massively increase the amounts of the fresh fruits and the fresh vegetables you guys are eating. Number 2, test the food that you grow and buy with something like an inexpensive brix meter to ensure you're going to get the highest quality food with the most amount of nutrients. And number 3, grow a garden to massively be able to increase the amount of varieties and different kinds of plant foods that you could be eating that contain different levels of phytonutrients, phytochemicals, vitamins, and minerals that you may not be getting if you're eating such a limited scope of foods out of the grocery store. And then in summary, I have over 2,200 videos that have been viewed over 75 million times, maybe 80,000 now. And growingyourgreens.com is the gardening, over 1,200 videos there. Over 450 videos on how to eat a healthy, plant-based, fruit and vegetable-dominated diet atokraw.com. And then also support me if you need to buy a juicer by buying your juicer at discountjuicers.com. I also have a YouTube channel with over 500 videos demonstrating, comparing side-by-side different juicers and blenders and dehydrators. Thank you. Yes, sure.
A comment on frozen foods?
Comment on frozen foods, sure. So the question is, what about frozen foods, John? So frozen foods, everybody always wants that cut and dry answer. John, are frozen foods good or are they bad? Are they better than fresh or worse? And so it depends. So it's kind of like going back to that slide that I had on what determines the quality of the produce. When was it harvested? How was it grown? All these play into the factor of, is frozen foods good? If I have frozen foods that they're using rock dust and it's picked at its peak and they're frozen, and then you buy them and thaw them out and eat them instantly, that's probably great. If they're using conventional farming practices, putting very little minerals in the soil, and they harvest it when it's not ripe and freeze it, and then you buy it, that's crap, right? So I can't say one way or another. It totally depends. I mean, I would encourage everybody, if you want high quality frozen food, to grow it yourself, harvest it at the peak before it's going to expire, and then have that. I have no objections to that. I do object to the farming practices of the agriculture system, and if you're buying frozen foods, it's probably from the agriculture system. So that's probably a bigger challenge. But if the fact that frozen foods allow you to increase the diversity of foods that you're eating, I think that's a good thing. So for example, if you're a true raw foodist, you may eat frozen fruits because they are not blanched in general before freezing, but frozen vegetables are blanched before freezing. Even though I'm a raw foodist, I make few exceptions. One exception is I will occasionally have some frozen vegetables if it allows me to expand the foods that I'm eating. So for example, I might get some organic frozen peas and corn sometimes. Another thing I'll get that's actually very important to me are the frozen artichoke hearts. Artichoke hearts, most people don't eat enough of them, but artichoke hearts are one of the most antioxidant-rich vegetables on the planet, and many people don't eat artichoke hearts. And so, I eat some of those. And now my diet is not made up of frozen foods or these frozen fruits. I might add a handful to my salad. That's everything else is in there is fresh, either from my garden or something I prepared fresh. So that's my answer to your question on that. Yes, right there.
I got 2 questions. Is your slideshow on one of your websites, and what does the brix meter measure? Is it light?
Right. So it's measuring the refractive of the light.
So
Refraction of the light.
All kinds of vegetables and fruits.
Exactly. You just got to be able to get a juice out of them.
And your slides?
So my slideshow is not, this is a slideshow specifically I made for VSH. I've never given this anywhere else. I will likely put up one of my versions on one of my websites, probablyokraw.com. And a VSH, or Vegetarian Society of Hawaii, has a full copy of my slideshow that they'll be putting up on their website as well.
Thanks.
Yes?
Other seed sources, and is Johnny Select Seeds one of them?
So seed sources, and is Johnny Select Seeds one of them? So yes, I like Johnny's. I just saw them actually at the Eco Farm Conference, the Organic Farming Association, where I was at 2 weeks ago. I just try to go and get wide varieties of seeds from different places. I like Rare Seeds or Baker Creek Seed Company. That's one of my favorites because they have like the most varieties. And then there's like Johnny's is really good. There's also one called Fedco is really good. I have a video on growingyourgreens.com where I review, I think this is several years ago, some of the top seed catalogs. And I just show the seed catalog and then I kind of give my 2 cents about them. And I really like regional seed catalogs because the seeds were more, grown in the area where you're going to be growing them. So they're more naturalized to the area versus, you buying some seeds. And I didn't even start to talk about where seeds are from that you're buying in these seed catalogs. If you go to the health food store or grocery store, we have COO or country of origin for the fruit or vegetable you're buying. At least you know what country it's from. But some of the seeds are grown in different countries all over the world and they're sold here. And now we're expected to grow these seeds that are originally grown for seed in South America, here in North America, where the climates may be different. So they may not work quite as well, and especially here in Hawaii, because the climate is so unique, it's very important to get plants that are going to do well. So some of the Asian greens, I think, so Kitazawa Seed Company, they're in Oakland, California, really good, I think, for some of the Asian greens that might be more tolerant to the climate here. Yes, in the back.
How do you wash your produce?
The question is, how do you wash your produce? So my answer is, I think on produce washing, I think each person needs to come up with their own idea. Number one, if they should wash or not. No animal on earth washes their produce. That being said, here in Hawaii, I know there is something known as a leptospirosis or rat lung disease, which if I lived here and I was growing greens, I would wash everything, and what I would use to wash it, I would use an ozone machine to basically put water, ozone, and ultrasonic. I'd put all the food in the water and ozonate it, which will kill all the bacteria and all the stuff, and then ultrasonic vibration to kill it. If you want a simple way without all that technology, ozonation has been approved by the FDA as a way to sanitize food and actually also sanitize other things. And actually I use the berry breeze in my fridge that actually will create activated oxygen, which is actually ozone, to kill the bacteria and mold in my fridge so that my fruits and vegetables will stay fresher longer without molding and all this kind of stuff. But I would use, I think one of the best methods is using salt water. If you do a salt water soak, according to Dr. Greger and the research he's reviewed. For me personally, what I do is I just wash off the produce under hot or warm running water in my sink. I put it on the spray one, not the one that dribbles out, the one that sprays hard. So I think one of the things that dislodges a lot of the different things is the water just hitting it and it running off. But that being said, I do caution people because, as much as there are bad bacteria and bad things on food, there are actually good things on the food, such as probiotics that live on the fruits or vegetables that we're eating. There's some research I've seen, it was really weird. Like, if you eat, I think it was like lychees, there's a special yeast on lychees that now they're actually bottling up and selling as a health food supplement in the supplement store. But if you're eating lychees and you get some of that stuff on your skin, you eat it, you're going to get that yeast naturally, right? But if you're super anal about washing everything off, you're not going to get some of the beneficial stuff. But once again, it's a pro and a con. You got to watch out for the truly bad things, parasites, but we might want to get some of the good things. Yes, in the front.
I haven't been able to find anybody who will ship blueberries to Hawaii. Is anybody growing blueberries here?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. So I would encourage you to check with, they have master gardeners, here in Hawaii. Some of the universities are connected with, master gardeners and gardening extension programs, and check with them. Or I would check with my friend Ken Love over on Big Island. He pretty much knows everything fruit on the islands and who does what. He's the fruit master. Ken Love. Yes.
What is slow juice?
What is slow juice? So a slow juice is a juice that's made at a slow speed versus a high speed. So my juicer runs at 43 RPMs or revolutions per minute. It's kind of like an old-fashioned meat grinder that you would actually crank and grind up the meat. It actually works very similar. It usually has an auger that basically you put the produce in, it crushes and squeezes out the juice, or it might have two twin gears in there, or it might be like a Norwalk or cold press style machine that literally just presses out the juice. So I have videos on youtube.com/raw foods, and I go over almost all the different slow juicers, all the major brands anyways, on the market and explain them, show how to use them, and I compare them side by side. Yes.
I have two questions. What about legumes and beans?
Sure.
And is the slow juice better than just the blend?
So the question is slow juice better than blending? And what was the specific question on the legumes and beans?
Well, as raw vegan, you don't.
Okay, sure. So the question is relating raw beans. Okay, sure, got it. So I'll take the easiest question first. So with the slow juicing and blending, like people will often say, John, blending, it's better than juicing, man, because you're getting the whole food. So I will not disagree that you're getting more with that. You're getting mainly the insoluble fiber when you're blending, and you remove that when you're juicing. But the flip side is, have you ever looked at a blender, especially if you have a Vitamix, right? When you click that blender on, if you just put water in there, you'll clearly see this, but it creates a nice little vortex funnel right down the middle. And if you guys ever lived in Kansas or somewhere where they actually have tornadoes, or if you ever watched The Wizard of Oz, you see that tornado that sucked up Dorothy's house and will blow roofs off Walmart. Those are very destructive things. So like those tornadoes and the vortex in the middle of a Vitamix, while that's grinding up all the produce and opening all the cell walls, it's also oxygenating that to heck. It's introducing and bombarding so much oxygen in that food, and you're losing nutrients so bad as one person into raw food says you're going to lose 90-something% of the nutrients. Now, I wouldn't go that far, but some of the recent studies show that in blending, you could lose up to 2.5 times more of a certain polyphenol in blueberries they tested doing a standard blending method. Now, luckily, here in 2017, this year, there'll be new blending technology known as vacuum blending technology, where they suck out the air first and then you blend. So now my argument about the oxidation damage will be minimized, because now you'll have 2.5 times more nutrients or polyphenols, or certain polyphenol from blueberries when you vacuum blend versus when you regular blend. So you're literally throwing some of the nutrients down the toilet when you're blending, and especially if you're over blending and blending too long. So with slow juicing, right, you don't have repeated blade strikes on the produce you're juicing. It goes in, it juices, it comes out, so you're going to have more of the phytochemicals and phytonutrients. So that's why I prefer that. And if you want to get the extra fiber, juice in the slow juicer and mix the fiber back in with the juice, and then you could have your total juice, but extracted in a way that does the least amount of harm to the nutrients or the phytochemicals in the juice. Now, as to the beans and legume question with the raw foods diet, so this is my personal opinion. My personal opinion is that beans and legumes are highly healthful to eat, and I think that many raw foodists should try to include as many of them as they can. Some things are really easy. Carob, that's a legume. I love carob pods, right? And there's many other things that are legumes. I eat some jungle peanuts. Those are also legumes. But there's other beans that people may not eat. I mean, you may sprout some things like lentils and mung beans, maybe some adzuki beans. and sprout and eat those. But then or garbanzo beans, the really famous one, they give me really bad gas. But some beans, I don't think they should be actually eaten raw, right? Maybe if they're sprouted, you could eat some. And so I try to grow as many fresh garden beans and snow peas and sugar snap peas in my garden and eat them fresh, because that's the best way to get them. But one of the other things that I've been doing recently is I'll start to eat fermented beans. So what I mean by that is something like natto or a tempeh that has been not pasteurized. So that's very important. So they're going to actually cook the beans. So technically that's not raw because you're cooking it, John. But you know, now more important than being 100% raw is about being 100% healthy. And you know, if I got to maybe go outside my confined raw food box or my vegan box a little bit to, you know, maintain the highest level of health, that's more important to me personally. And of course, everybody needs to make their own decisions. But anyways, so something like natto, where you take soybeans, you cook them, you inoculate them with bacteria, and then they basically ferment, and then they create, once again, secondary metabolites such as vitamin K2 that can be deficient in a vegan diet. And that's why people say, oh, you need to eat meat for your K2. I get that from natto, which is cooked soybeans that have been fermented, and I consider them a live food because they're actually active and living. And the same thing with the tempeh. You guys have the Maui Tempeh Company, which I'm going to hopefully make a video while I'm here, and I'm pretty sure they don't pasteurize, but I got to talk to them further. But you can make your own tempeh at home and include more beans like that. I would think that's a really prudent thing to do. Now, once again, my diet is not a bean-based diet either. It's a fruit and vegetable-based diet. I like to have a few beans and natto maybe once a week mixed in with my soup just to make sure I get some of the nutrients from that. I try to eat as many, frozen peas was one of the things I add that's frozen, and grow garden beans and whatnot in my garden. Oh, I like dilly beans, so I like to lactic acid ferment or pickle my beans from my garden and eat those. Yes?
How's your immune system going?
How's my immune system going? So I will say that if I never left my house and never traveled, I would never get sick. I would say when I go on, flights and travel long periods of time, I don't get as much sleep. I'm not on my standard diet because I'm having to eat when I travel out of grocery stores or farms or farmers markets. And, there's all that recirculated air on the plane. So I might get sick maybe once, maybe twice a year, but if I never traveled, I would never get sick. Dave.
Vacuum blenders on the market? How much do they cost?
Vacuum blenders on the market. So the vacuum blenders are not yet released. I just saw them at the Consumer Electronics Show just in January. I was supposed to get my sample actually while I'm here in Hawaii. It was going to get shipped to my home in Las Vegas. They told me it's not going to be in until March. They're not yet out yet. They will be released this year. There's at least a handful of companies, Tribest, Sano, Kuvings, that are going to be coming out with them. And the one from Sano, they've announced their pricing. It's going to be around $500, so about the same price as a Vitamix. That being said, I'm also working on taking a NutriBullet, and then with a $40 thing you could buy, make your own vacuum blender for really inexpensive. So I'm going to sell the expensive ones, and then I'm going to show people how to make one for cheap. That's my goal. Yes.
Do you have any DC juicers in your collection?
Do I have any DC juicers in my collection? So
for those off the grid?
For off the grid. So I do recommend getting an electric juicer, and you could use a power inverter. Some of the juicers that are the low-speed juicers, like the juicer I use is 150 watts. So that really doesn't pull a lot of amperage like a blender would pull like 1,200 watts. So what did you guys think of that presentation, right? I thank you guys for staying committed to watching the whole presentation, because I believe I have valuable information to share. And unfortunately, looking at some of the statistics of some of my YouTube videos, most people bail after like 10 minutes, they get bored. But I'm not here to give you the quick 5-minute answer. I mean, what is the quick 5-minute answer? Eat fruits and vegetables, grow your own, and grow a wide diversity of good soil micronutrients, and include a lot of these foods in your diet. Now, if I had that, do you think people would really do it, or do you think they really need the backstory? And that's why I like to give you guys the backstory. All the research and all the work I've done, put into videos, put into lectures so that you guys could benefit. Now, this presentation was specifically designed for people in Hawaii so that they could grow some of the perennial, tropical, especially edible leafy greens. This will also work for you if you're in other tropical countries around the world. But if you're not in the tropics, you may need to get some other different kinds of perennial vegetables that I talked about earlier. Some of the perennials that I talked about earlier may grow as annuals, just maybe during your warm season, but they really don't like the frost. But don't worry, there are many other perennial vegetables you guys can grow and eat. I would encourage you guys to check out my other YouTube channel, Growing Your Greens, where I have over 1,200 videos explaining to you guys all aspects on how you guys can grow your own fruits and vegetables and a wide diversity and the highest quality. In any case, if you guys enjoyed this episode, hey, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. Also be sure to check down below. I'll put a link to vsh.org. You can check out the presentation I gave in Oahu if you want pretty much the same information, maybe a little bit different format, how I'm delivering it differently. And hey, if you remember, please put a comment down below and let me know if you liked this presentation better or the one on Oahu. They're both maybe just a little bit different. But anyways, I'm really grateful for the VSH of Hawaii for sponsoring this trip, which is technically a working vacation. And it was difficult, let me tell you. Island hopping, 3 islands, being on each island maybe a couple days, not really having time to do much except to get prepared for my talk, show up to other, meet and greet and eat out events. It's been difficult, so I'm glad I have a few extra days here on Maui just to relax with me and my girlfriend on the beach. In any case, that'll do it for today. Be sure to click that subscribe button right down below if you're not already subscribed so you don't miss out on any of my new and upcoming episodes I have coming out about every 5 to 7 days. And also be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. In my opinion, they're more valuable than any other raw food vegan YouTuber online, because I kind of get to some of the heart of the matter, not just giving you some frou-frou, eat this, eat that. I'm telling you why, and some of my latest research over the last 21 plus years now, I've been into this diet and lifestyle. So with that, my name is John Kohler, bidding you aloha from Maui, Hawaii. And once again, withokraw.com. We'll see you next time. Until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.